With the Archon quest for Fontaine concluding, and Furina being released to us in 4.2, we now have a total of 5 Archons being available to us. Now, I'm not here to debate whether Furina is an Archon or not, although in my opinion, she totally is, be it based on her story or actual kit. Anyway, I'm sure that many of you out there, free to play or not, must be wondering which of the Archons are the best, using the information to decide if 1. You should get them at C0 on their rerun, or 2. You should get more constellations for them on their rerun. So, to facilitate both types of players, I will be splitting this video to cover both aspects. Do note that all information in this video is based on my own experience of using the Archons. If you disagree, feel free to leave your own rankings in the comments below. Without further ado, let's firstly rank which Archons are best at C0. The criteria that I will use in this case is firstly, versatility. How many teams they can fit into and how many teammates they can benefit. And second, their utility. How beneficial is their kit to defeat the enemy faster. Coming in at number 5, we have Venti. Venti mainly serves 3 functions. Firstly, as a crowd controller for smaller or lighter enemies. This crowd control is especially useful in the Spiral Abyss floors where they are the monolith or against annoying small enemies such as the mirror mages who love to teleport. Secondly, Venti is also able to aid in traversal with its elemental skill. Holding it will generate a wind current for you to fly up, allowing you to reach higher places a lot more easily. And thirdly, Venti being the animal character can make use of the Viridism Venera artifact set to swirl and reduce the enemy's elemental resistance. C0 Venti ends up at number 5 on my list because, as much as I like him, he has many flaws with his kit. His crowd control, while amazing, only works on smaller enemies, which makes him useless against bosses. The swirl that he can do with his skill is also inaccurate, which prevents him from swirling the right element most of the time. Even 4-star characters such as Sucrose or Lynette can do it better. As for his traversal, it is also outclassed by Kazuha, who can use his skill in the air and has a shorter cooldown, or the Wanderer, who can use his skill for both vertical and lateral traversal. It is hence difficult to fit Venti in teams, considering others can do most of what he can do better or benefit other characters more. Coming in at number 4, we have the Raiden Shogun. Before you throw up your pitchforks, please listen to what I have to say. At C0, Raiden primarily has 2 functions. First, it is to help generate energy for a team when she strikes enemies with an elemental burst. Second, is for electro application with an elemental skill. Her skill is unique, such that it will launch a coordinated electro attack wherever enemies are hit, which allows for easy electro application. C0 Raiden is at number 4 however, as I feel that at C0, she does not fit in many teams. Her DPS at C0 is lackluster, which means that when you are using her on field to help to generate energy, you are losing out on the vital damage that other characters could have been doing instead. Coordinated electro attack, while amazing, is primarily best for aggravate or hyper bloom teams and Yoimiya overloaded teams, but that is it. You normally would not want to use overloaded with other characters as it just isn't a very good reaction and sends enemies flying, which reduces your overall DPS. Due to a lack of DPS at C0 and the fact that electro reactions just aren't that strong outside of Dendro, it makes it harder to fit Raiden on teams, which does drop her down to number 4 on my list. Coming in at number 3, it's Zhongli. Zhongli primarily has 2 functions as well. Firstly, having the best shield in the game to protect teammates to ensure that they have resistance to interruption and do not lose health so that they can continue dealing damage. Secondly, it's also from his shield, which also provides a 20% elemental resistance down to enemies. C0 Zhongli is at number 3 because unlike Raiden and Venti, Zhongli can be put on multiple teams where you have a DPS to just provide the shielding. The shield is very important to help your DPSs deal more damage overall through the protection and the elemental resistance down. He can also provide the strongest shield so easily with the press of his skill, which makes him literally unable to be replaced by other newer shielders. However, Zhongli is not placed higher on the list because the damage increase he can provide to the team is capped at only 20%. This means that if you would like your team to become stronger or are good at dodging, often will end up foregoing Zhongli for another character like Kazuha instead to improve your team's damage, which reduces the times Zhongli is on your team. That said, he is still very good, and I will still tend to place him on many of my teams. Nahida takes my number 2 spot on the C0 Archons list. Nahida's primary function is to mark multiple enemies using her elemental skill, which also applies Dendro. Enemies marked will be linked and also affected by the Seed of Skandha. When enemies are hit with a Dendro related reaction, all enemies linked will be dealt Dendro damage by the Seed of Skandha. C0 Nahida takes the number 2 spot because she's literally the core for many Dendro teams. She applies Dendro so easily at such low skill cooldowns that you'll be missing out if you don't use her. This is further supplemented by the fact that Dendro reactions are just so strong. You can defeat enemies so easily without even needing to put much thought into it. Moreover, Nahida literally makes useless characters viable without even having to invest that much into them. For example, previously useless character Kuki and Toma are given new life thanks to how strong they are with Hyper Bloom and Virgin. You don't even need to worry about leveling up their talents. Just level them up to 90, give them elemental mastery weapons and artifacts, and you're good to go. The only reason why C0 Nahida is not number 1 is because Bloom reactions cannot crit, which does limit damage potential, and while she improves many other characters, she does not do so as much as our next contender. Coming in at number 1 is the recently released Furina. Furina has 2 functions. Number 1, to provide a damage increase for the entire team with an elemental burst, when she gains fanfare through HP loss or gain from a team. At C0, she is able to provide a total of 75% damage increase at level 10 talents at maximum fanfare stacks. Number 2, she is able to provide off-field support with an elemental skill. She can either apply Hydro and deal damage, or to heal the team. Furina is at number 1 on my list because she literally makes previously less viable DPSs become more viable or stronger. Characters such as Xiao and Ito, who were on my characters I regretted pulling for list, have now become so much stronger with the introduction of Furina. The important point to note is that unlike Bennett's attack buff, which can only benefit attack scaling characters, Furina's is a damage buff which buffs the entire team no matter the damage type. It allows for insane damage increases for defense scaling characters such as Ito and HP scaling ones such as Yelan. Additionally, previously less viable characters such as Jean and Barbara also become extremely beneficial in a Furina team. These characters can heal the entire team with their burst, which allows for Furina to gain the fanfare stacks quickly during a burst to get to the maximum damage boost as well. Furina's elemental skill is also great as it allows for off-field Hydro application. Hydro being the most versatile element acts as the catalyst for many powerful reactions such as Freeze, Vaporize and Hyper Bloom, which lands Furina in many teams. Finally, characters such as Noelle and Yanfei, who I literally have never considered to use ever, are now being used on my team thanks to Furina's elemental skill, which enables them to use the Marichase Hunter set with the HP loss, allowing us to build them with crit damage while also increasing their normal and charge attack damage. Furina, literally the most versatile Archon to date, and being of the Hydro element just makes her even better. The only thing that holds her back is because at C0, you will likely require a healer on your team, which does make your team compositions more restrictive. Before I continue, if you enjoyed today's video, do consider leaving a like and subscribing if you haven't to help us to get to our next goal of 5,000 subscribers. Thank you so much! And that was my list at C0. Let's move on to the second part of the video, to talk about the Archons whose constellation you should get on their rerun. The criteria for the second part is the number of constellations required to have a huge change, and how good is that constellation. Note that I'll only be going up to a maximum of C2 because let's be real, if you're going for C6, you probably don't need this video. Coming in at number 5 again, unfortunately, is Venti. Venti unfortunately has a useless C1 since you literally do not use his charge attacks. His C2 is definitely better, but you only get a 24% animal resistance down, and that's if the character is small enough to be carried. Compare this to the Animal Traveler, who literally can reduce the enemy's animal resistance by 20% with his or her burst, and can also reduce the elemental resistance of the element absorbed by 20%. So, unless you really like Venti, it really isn't worth it to get his constellation. Coming in at number 4 is Zhongli. Zhongli's C1 increases the number of his stone pillars to 2 instead of 1. Honestly, although his pillars can deal geo damage, it is very unreliable and will often disappear when hitting another object. Having another pillar honestly won't be that beneficial to you, though it does increases the chances of the tenacity of the Millilith's 4-piece set bonus to activate. Zhongli's C2 allows him to grant all party members with a shield when he uses his burst. Once again, you also wouldn't use this as much, considering you can simply give yourself a shield by pressing his skill. The shield has such a long duration and short cooldown that you're almost never left shieldless. The only two scenarios that this is useful is if your shield is destroyed before your cooldown ends, or in co-op to provide shielding for other teammates. But is it worth to pay for his constellations just to get a shield that he already has? The answer is no, but at least his constellations are more useful than Venti's. At number 3, we have the Raiden Shogun. Raiden's C1 is basically quality of life for a burst. It charges up her ring a lot faster, especially if they are electro characters, which helps her get to the maximum damage of a burst a lot faster. Her main improvement comes at C2 however, which allows her burst to ignore 60% of the enemy's defense. This is where it allows Raiden to literally become an on-field DPS with her burst, but also helping her team to recharge energy. You have a reason to have Raiden take the field now. Raiden C2 is the first constellation that I feel is a must get if you really enjoy playing Raiden, because she becomes so much more fun with the insane damage that she can deal. Raiden C2 is not higher on this list because this constellation only benefits her own burst and not other teammates. But that said, it is a really fun constellation to have, and I highly recommend it as well. At number 2, we have Nahida again. Nahida's C1 allows the free tabulation of one Pyro, Electro, and Hydro character when her burst is used, which will increase the damage of the Tri-Karma Purification, decreases the interval between each Tri-Karma Purification, and increases the duration of her burst respectively. This is good as it allows for quicker Dendro application when her burst is up, but it doesn't change as much, unlike her C2, which allows bloom related reactions to have a crit rate of 20% and a crit damage of 100%, and decreases the defense of opponents hit by Electro Dendro reactions by 30% when they are affected by Nahida's skill. This is really insane as it increases the damage potential of Bloom significantly. The previously low investment Bloom characters can deal even more damage now if their EM is increased to defeat enemies even quicker. Moreover, the defense down on enemies from quicken reactions is not just limited to Electro or Dendro elements, but in general, so it can even work with characters such as Eula to increase her physical damage even further. The increase in damage potential for everyone here is really amazing. However, at our number 1 spot, Furina is once again at the top. I was honestly contemplating between Nahida or Furina for the top spot, but Furina takes the cake. Her C1 basically gives her 150 fanfare points immediately and increases her fanfare limit from 300 to 400. Simply put, Furina will grant the team an immediate 37.5% damage boost upon using her burst, up to a maximum of 100% compared to the previous 75%. The 25% increase in damage boost already makes this constellation amazing, and the start at 37.5% is also a huge quality of life, which makes this very early constellation amazing and a must get compared to other Archons C1. Furina C2 is great too, which grants you a 3.5 fanfare gain per 1% change in HP instead of only 1 fanfare, which expands Furina's team versatility. You can now more easily have a single target healer such as Bennett instead of a team-wide healer like Jean, and can still hit the maximum fanfare stacks. Moreover, when Furina's fanfare reaches the limit, she's also able to increase her max HP up to 140%, which increases her skill damage even further. Having two good constellations so early on is just unfair, which makes Furina the number 1 on this list again. So, which of the Archons will you be getting on their rerun at C0 or their Constellations 4? Do let me know down in the comments below. If you'd like to see which standard banner character is the most worth to build, please click the video on the right. If you would like to see my other Genshin Impact videos, please click the playlist on the left. Once again, thank you so much for watching and see you next time. Bye bye!